It is already week 6, and we're here. And at the previous lesson, we discussed adapt to different screen sizes. Today I will finish this one, and I will start one more topic, and connecting to internet. I'm not sure if I can finish it before break, like reading week break. We will see. But definitely, some of it will go further because applications tend to store local data, what they downloaded from internet. I'm not covering this today for sure, because it is for future. Google course that I'm referring to is not covering it. It is definitely in some textbooks, so it's not mysterious. It deserves some discussion and perhaps some examples how to store local data, how to store data downloaded from internet locally, so when you're offline, you can read it. Many programs do it. For example, email programs who can read emails previously downloaded even when we are offline. So it is not just exercise in programming, it is useful feature to learn. So this is definitely coming in some form, how to store data downloaded from web locally and display it when it is web is off or is still downloading, refreshing. When we deal with this issue, we need some kind of refresh logic. So if we keep data locally and display it, we need to some kind of ensure that it is reasonably current. Okay, so for example, it is weather, so it's not showing like yesterday weather, something like that, because it was downloaded yesterday. So it should be some update logic. So, and it's definitely extra. Just dealing with updates is either through notification or periodic refresh. It depends on the situation. If it is weather, maybe you want to update it when app is working, or maybe even in background, in case it's like weather notification, like hurricane is coming, whatever. So it really depends on situation what you want, but definitely it should be some discussion of local storage of the data that is downloaded from internet. So there is a link how to create those links. This approach is when you download it first and display it after. Download it into local copy and display it after is discussed by Google, and they do have some examples for that, but they're quite long and advanced, so I cannot really use them right now. I will keep adding stuff to existing examples to show this approach. Today's example is following idea from a Google example when they display data from internet. It is directly, it's coming and it is displayed. So there is a local copy, but this local copy will not survive when you close up. It is just in-memory copy. Of course, there is in-memory copy when you download data before displaying it is in some kind of variables. So this is what happens. It is stored in variables and displayed. So I'm using that approach in today's example. My example is somewhat different from theirs. In one situation where it is definitely different, I'm using Hilt dependency injection. And since I'm reusing previous examples that didn't use it, so I quickly compare how to add Hilt dependency injection to the project that doesn't have it. So it is second repetition of it's slightly more advanced scope, because previously we had example with comparison, with Hilt dependency injection or without. In that case, that program already had dependency injection for the database using like container linked to application class. The project that I will start today, continue today, if familiar to you from previous lessons, it's a demo for pets with some navigation, lists and details. Today we'll have an example for that. First, I will add Hilt dependency injection without web, just to existing code, to show that logic, so it is a smaller step. And after this, I will show how to get data from web and link it together. There is no local copy yet. In this case, it is still the same thing. But when we dealing with data coming from web, there is a significant difference from local data, because you ask for data, you have to wait for it. And while you have to wait for it, program should not freeze it. So we do these tasks as independent tasks. So we do it in coroutine context by creating coroutine. Coroutine it is concurrent task. So program can refresh screen while it is doing something else, essentially. And so this definitely has that piece. And when data coming from web, you can technically create flow yourself if you want to. But there is a simpler way of not doing it, avoiding it. So I will discuss this part. And it is exactly the same approach used in Google example. So I'm just repeating this stuff in different contexts. So what is the issue? Not issue, what is the point? The point is that when data is coming from database gives you flow. You don't need to create it yourself. You ask it, OK, do this query, and on each table update and insert new data into flow. So in this case, it is relatively straightforward how to create the flow. You ask API to give me the flow based on this query. Such API does not exist if you ask data from web. You either have to create a layer yourself or just do something else. So for this reason, we need to learn how to do something else. And maybe later, if you want to create flow yourself for some exercise, you want to do it. But I am explaining approach that is used in the Google course that I'm referring to with some extra bells and whistles in the program. Okay? So today's example is displaying data from web, but it's not using flow, so it's different. But it has delay in it. Also, this has something extra compared to database, because if it is local database, user is unlikely to notice any delay. Because data is local, although it is reading file relatively fast, so you don't need to display loading screen. But if data is coming from web, loading could be delayed, really. So maybe it's a good idea to display loading screen for the time when data is coming. And also, it could be connection issue. So you need to deal with error screen. So program is not crashing, or it's not just misbehaving. So there is some message like data is not available, error, connection error, something like that. So internal logic of the program becomes more complicated because you have to deal with two issues, right? Data loading and data not coming, right? You ask for it and you get error message, essentially. And so these both programs that comes from Google example, and my program for pets also have it. Google example does not have navigation between pages. That is, for simplicity, they did it in just one page. So I'm combining those. So this is what we're going to do today. And I need to finish discussion of displaying different screen sizes. As I promised before, I look into how to display list and details on the same screen. That makes sense, a lot of sense on tablet. You know that on tablets we typically have like list of emails and display content of email at right, list of emails at left, and content of selected email at right. And it's definitely the same screen. So when I was looking into that, of course, yeah, I was looking to that all the time, like not all the time, at least once a year. Well, what is the current approach? A couple of years ago, it was an article on developerandroid.com that was suggesting to do it with a combination of navigation and flags together. It did look like a little kind of questionable hack. And I decided not to explain it. at that moment. And they removed it. So now this article doesn't exist. They probably realized that it's kind of questionable hack. So they also discussed that it's possible to do navigation inside of navigation. So you have navigation for entire screen and also navigation for details screen inside of it. I believe it's them, but I didn't try. What is the issue related to that approach? There is an issue, because if you have navigation inside of navigation, that window inside of a window will disappear periodically. And if it is disappearing, you lose history in that window. So it will restart history when it is recreated. So in this case, history data, like navigation data with navigation stack, go back logic, becomes inconsistent unless you do lots of programming yourself in order to maintain it. Although it's kind of tempting to learn how to do it, don't. The reason is that they're replacing navigation system with navigation 3 that has different logic inside and different API. So there's no point in learning how to do navigation inside of navigation with current system because it's already alpha release of navigation 3. It will become somewhat stable in probably a year or two. By the time when you really need to write large application, it will be a different approach. But I still, before previous lesson, I thought that, okay, we can do it brute force. We don't have to do it navigation side of navigation. We can do it brute force. So, although it's kind of obvious, that appears obvious, I decided to check it before actually explaining it, because who knows, maybe it doesn't work. So I tried, it works. So what I will show, it's not an official approach because it's not like explicitly recommended by Google, but it does work, so why not? Okay. So how to do list and details on the same screen, not with flags, but with navigation system. So it's, again, this is kind of hack. It is simpler hack than Google suggested before, and they removed it from their website, but it still works, so why not, I will show. Okay. So this is how we will start. I will show that little hack, how to do. This is starting point, but it will definitely not take entire lesson. It's probably for 15 minutes. And after this, we will go into new topic, connection to internet. So going back to exam is next week. It is on Thursday. It means we will have one more lesson next week before the exam. And assignment is due this Saturday. It means it's last lesson before assignment. So if something is drastically stuck, you need to ask questions today about that, because I'm not really answering questions on weekend, a couple hours before it's due. Also, it is hard to figure out what is wrong over email communication or even through chat. It's still extremely hard to do. Okay? So try to ask questions in class. If you feel completely stuck, I will not write code for you, but at least I will suggest something that looks reasonable to me. Okay? So what about assignment 3? Assignment 3 is not soon. Right? It is after reading week. And it will have combination of loading data from internet and likely local copy, depending on how much I explain how to do with local copy. So I'm still thinking what to do somewhat reasonable. It is either similar to my example or just give some option to creativity, like display some data from some other server, not what I provide. But I will think about it, and definitely I will post it immediately after first week, immediately after reading week. So this is about that. Let's go to content. And at the previous lesson, week 6, I explained it math trainer example, and it was video recorded. Video is not posted yet. I will post it tonight together with today's video. It will be 2 videos. I was overwhelmed with the amount of work to do, and dealing with video, it is a couple hours. It's not like you have to. It's not like you have to sit and do work for 2 hours, but you periodically need to do something while it's processing of the video. So it's not completely automatic. So. Okay. When we deal with this example, there are 2 choices: is to download, update, or just reclone it. It's up to you. Both should work. There are extra branches in the code, so maybe recloning will be safer to do, so it will not complain that code is mismatching or something like that. Okay. Let's open it and see if it can grab update without any issues. And if it cannot, it will complain about some conflicts of updates, like a merge conflict or something like that. We will just reclone. We will not deal with merge conflicts. It will be quicker to reclone. All right. So I open it from the folder that I use it in the class, which is different from the folder I use it to write the code. So it's supposed to be the same situation as for you. Math trainer, this one. Okay. And if we can get updates without any merge conflicts, we will go for it. Otherwise, we'll just reclone it. Merge conflicts could take some time to resolve. So we left it with adaptive to screens, but I added more stuff to it, so it's not current. So let's try to update project. Run update project and hope that it will do updates without any issues. Merge incoming, okay. It seems like it was fine. Now let's click sync. So it did merge updates. Okay, and now let's first see what is actually different, and after this I'll explain how it works. So since it is for different screen sizes, I switch from medium phone to the one that we installed at the previous lesson, a resizable experimental option. And I will run it on resizable experimental, and first I will do for phone. After this, I will switch to what's this, foldable, because foldable is actually changing stuff. This is interesting. But because you don't run it on different device, you just change size of it, right? So let's do that. Running on resizable experimental, and I will choose foldable closed first to imitate phone. Input dispatcher, blah, blah, blah. This is, let's ignore it for now. Oh yeah, it is for previous messages. Okay. I didn't redo the screen, so you see it is kind of stretched. The easiest way is probably just to reduce, set limit for the size, so it doesn't stretch the entire screen. So this is quick fix, and I decided not to bother at this moment. Okay, so I will first switch to foldable, so it is foldable, and I will close, and I will fold it, close it. Okay, when you close it, it disappears, and you need to open it because you close the device. You need to refresh the screen, like open device itself, and it behaves like a phone. So let's go to list of problems. And I slightly changed this. This is not stretching to entire screen, to entire area, because it looks ugly horizontally, because it is too long on the screen. And I flip it. This used to be here. This is here. So it is small change. And now let's rotate this one. And here's the first change. Now it is 2 columns. And it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? This part. Definitely it is a different layout. Okay? Because you cannot do this one with lazy column. Okay. This is settings from the top of the device. So this is not lazy column because it's not a column, and I added more items. By default, it was 5. Now I changed this to 20 to see arrangement on the screen. So this is what was added. This is not list in details. This is just list displayed differently. It is also related to today's topic, downloading data from web. In Google example, they use this approach, 2 columns. Okay? Actually, it's not 2 columns. They made it dynamic, so it is as many columns as width allows. But I fixed this to 2 columns for simplicity. And it appears also not feasible in my situation because they display just images in all size, but it's not different. Okay? So what did I do here? This is not list details, and it is simpler. So let's go to arrangement of the screen. What is this app root screen? And this is the list, problem list. You see? List problems. So what did I do? If it's phone vertical, I display problem list screen vertical. Otherwise, I assume it is phone horizontal. So everything else is the same. Because unless we have phone vertical, we have enough width to display 2 columns, essentially. So this was my logic. Okay. We can do more variants, like 3 columns, but I decided not to bother. Okay. So this is the logic here. So this is the same, except I flipped this 2. But this part is different because it is 2 columns. So let's see. It is definitely in list, right? List, problem list screen. I define it function. I didn't make preview. I didn't bother. For that, I decided that, okay, let's see it on the screen and see. So I'm looking for phone horizontal. Right? Phone horizontal. Where is that? So instead of lazy column, obviously it's not a column. It's more than 1 column. So I use it lazy vertical grid. Logically, it is vertical, scroll it vertically, grid because we have more than 1, and number of columns, it is just fixed to 2. Okay, so starting with phone horizontal and everything else, except phone vertical, I have 2 columns, essentially. When you do so, you need to be careful about padding, because if you keep the same settings, this stuff will disappear, this padding will disappear. So I needed to add vertical arrangement spaced by to get this one. Now I have 2 horizontal arrangement and vertical arrangement because I have a grid. Okay, so this is difference. Previously we had 1 of it. And the rest of the code is surprisingly the same. So that was changed. So dealing with 2 columns, it is easy copy-paste. Essentially, with small adjustment to use lazy grid instead of lazy column. Okay. But this is not list in details. It is just show how to do lists with more than one column. Essentially, it is lazy grid. So if we go back and just go to one column. Okay. So this is not surprising. If we unfold this one, so this is folded. So let's say it's open. We need to push this, and it becomes two columns because its width is bigger, so it is switched not to fold horizontal, but other. Okay. So let's close this one. So this is the logic about list. So it seems like really brute force approach. When we go to a particular problem, like this one, 8, it just goes to as before, to the problem as before. Rotation, I had to adjust rotation for this device because it appears like either, since it's experimental, it has a bug in it, or I missed something, so I had to fix that. I remember that in the previous class, it was some piece didn't fit into screen. So it was kind of jammed together, okay? I will show what it was, and I will show what I changed it, because it is potentially useful, okay? This was surprisingly okay. You didn't see it in the previous class, because I just didn't realize that. I was surprised, and I didn't want to show that I was surprised, okay? So this was surprisingly, this was okay. But when you keep rotating, say rotate again when camera was here, this orientation. This was jammed, this button was jammed, so it couldn't fit. It looked really weird because if camera here, it wouldn't fit, but when camera is here, it would fit. What a strange logic. Okay, it should fit either way, right? It is, besides this area, it is the same. It's supposed to be the same width. It is either something I totally don't understand, or it is just a bug in, because it is experimental, they're still working on it. So what did they do? Remember that we use inner padding in order to avoid overlaps with the stuff on the screen. Inner padding. So it appeared to me like inner padding, when from this side, was faulty because it was adding far more width here. And I look at it to that with rotating on the screen, it appeared like it is the case. So when camera was here, it was adding too much padding here, and when camera was here, this padding wasn't added from the right, which is kind of weird. Why? Okay. So I decided to ignore padding from the left side completely, because it appears like a faulty, so I decided just to go around this piece. Okay. So this is how I fixed it. So let's go to phone horizontal for that. This is details phone horizontal. Database. Details for problem details screen. Problem layout. Phone horizontal body, this is it. And let's find out details left trail. Row. Oh, here it is. I see. I didn't give inner padding directly to the padding. I give top and right only. I thought the bottom is not overlapping. What's the point? Okay, there's nothing to overlap at the bottom. So top means from the top, obviously, and means from the right. So I didn't give left from inner padding that was apparently causing issue, because it was strangely too wide for no reason. It appeared that they added this padding to the left for, it appeared like a bug. They added this thing here, because this gap was looking like it is this area. Okay, so I decided to ignore it. So, and it's also learning experience that when we deal with inner padding, we can split it into pieces if we want, like this. So this is learning experience, maybe not necessary in real device, maybe on real device it works the same and we'll have to go back. Who knows? But I don't have a foldable device to check it because this would be seriously expensive to have. Okay, so this is what happened. Let's rotate it again so it is vertical. Okay, and magic happens when you unfold it this way. So when we this way we unfold it, open. Magic did not happen, but we had to wait. It did happen, okay, because it needs time to rebuild it. So now we have a list and details on the same screen. How it was implemented? Let's go here. Problem. And it works. When you go here, list, click on the problem, it shows here in problem 5, you see. And, for example, you go to problem 2. Problem 2 was after problem 5, right? I click it. A back button, where it is, this back button, you see it goes back to problem 5. So it is using navigation stack to go back. I didn't add back button here. Okay, not everything at once. Okay, this, you see, it's dealing with navigation stack. Now it was problem 8 before. Okay, so it is using the same navigation system, the same navigation stack. It's navigation side of navigation. So, and it is indeed brute force. So let's open that layout with this problem. Screen, app root screen. And it is details screen. Okay, and now I have 3 variants. I used to have 2. Phone vertical and phone horizontal, and otherwise it was assumption for phone vertical. And now I added tablet horizontal. This is it. This is tablet horizontal. Otherwise it goes to phone vertical because I was too lazy to go further. Okay. Okay. As you see, this is the same navigation system, just extra entry. That is dealing with this. Problem, details, screen, tablet, horizontal. So I just created separate layout within the same navigation system. So it is not navigation side of navigation. So it's a brute force approach. And it definitely works with going back button because you just go to previous state. And what is address? Address is the same as before, problem / problem ID. In addition to problem ID, it shows list. Definitely, the easiest approach is to use two view models, one for this, because we already have a code for it. So this layout, this one, has three view models in it, this one. View model for this, view model for this, and view model for this was separate from this one before. So it has 3 view models. Why? Separation of concerns, why not? I don't see any problem. Because they are different tasks working together, but they're different tasks. So I have view model for this, view model for that, and view model for this. So let's open this problem, details, screen, tablet, horizontal. Navigation is the same, but you see, since it's different layout, you can have different navigation setup here, depending on what buttons you have. Because different layout may have different buttons in it. Because you display more or less stuff on it, depending on the screen size. And you can set up different navigation. But it happened to be by accident, it is the same. Okay, well. So let's open this problem details screen tablet horizontal. So it is in details. Tablet horizontal. There is a phone vertical, phone horizontal, and tablet horizontal. What is different here? I have a view model for the list, a view model for details, and view model for score. So I'm combining this information from 3 view models, and I have layout that combines GUI from those 3. So it is really brute force, nothing special. I did have to rearrange GUI because surprisingly brute force combination didn't work, so I had to change some layouts options. Okay, so if I go to problem screen details horizontal body, problem detail screen tablet horizontal body, this one. I have row for entire screen. In the row, I have rail, okay, vertical divider, lazy column, vertical divider. And in this vertical divider, I have a column. After this vertical divider, this one, I have a column that has problem layout, it is this piece, and details button layout, it is this piece, and where is this piece? Somewhere it has to be. Okay, let's find it where it is. Problem layout, it is this one. Details button layout, it is this. Perhaps it is inside of it. Yes, it is in details button layout because you see it is receiving score. Otherwise, what it would need? Score, okay? So it is receiving score, so it is inside of the details button layout. So it's one piece, essentially. Okay? So this was approach. Brute force seems to work. When we fold it, it will rebuild the screen, and it will figure out, OK, now it is phone vertical. It is the same address because address is preserved inside of navigation system. And for that address in phone vertical, it will be only this piece. So it appears like brute force approach just works 100%. Maybe it is not the most optimal. Maybe there are optimizations. But definitely, why not? Okay. A fancy system may need fancy stuff, but this is not one of those. Okay. So when we fold it back, it will just show this one. And it will remember problem 8 because it is the same address, problem/8, right? And problem/8 address is remembered inside of navigation system. So after rebuilding the screen, it will go to navigation problem 8, and it will be this part. So let's do that. Close it. Problem 8, you see it's rebuilt, and it is rebuilt, it's not lost. So brute force works 100%. Okay. Definitely, it's not covering all possibilities, right? But if we need list and details, just no issue. Just do brute force without thinking of navigation inside of navigation, any kind of flag combinations. It just goes directly straight forward. Definitely, it's not part of any assignment or anything else because it's a kind of hack. Not hack, it's kind of obvious piece, but it's not part of Google recommendation, so I just said, OK, I tried, it works, why not? Okay. So this is what where I want to wrap discussion of different screen sizes. Hopefully, you got the impression that in most of the time it is just tedious, it's not super smart. If we understand the approach and have enough time to code GUI for different layouts, just do that. Okay? Speaking about writing code for different layouts, it can take lots of time because you need to consider combinations of those, right? So when you do your capstone project, just stick to one and do demo for one, unless you really have lots of time left. Okay? Because when you present your capstone, nobody cares about different screen sizes. You just run it on the device that made it work. If somebody complains, how would it look on tablet? Okay, work in the progress. Because capstone, it is proof of the concept. It's not 100% final product. Okay. So this is where I want to stop and stop this topic and most likely not even return to it. At this moment, I don't plan to merge this to main branch because main branch doesn't have this layout. One reason why, because more code to browse for. Okay, it just since examples should be easier to navigate, so I decided not to navigate in terms of looking for solution, right? When you do your assignment, you browse through example and find piece that shows you how to do specific stuff. And since assignments will not include different screen sizes, I do not merge this code into main branch. I definitely will not delete this adaptive to screens because, yeah, useful information, right? But I will not merge it to main branch. In main branch, I will continue working with main branch with other features added. So next feature added is to get option to get problems from web server. Okay? So it's not local, it is coming from web server. So it is today topic, but I didn't write web server yet today. I was working on code yesterday for other things. Okay? But I will do web server definitely by first lesson after break, or maybe even next lesson. So I will see. Okay? Most likely it is first lesson after break. It is surprisingly not big unless you want to do extra fancy stuff. It can be done in Kotlin by copy-pasting the code that already have to generate problems. So essentially I need to make web interface for it. And that is surprisingly not overwhelming either. So it has several hours of work, it's not several days. So it will be done in Kotlin, and code will be understood even if it's out of scope of this course. Because most of it I will copy-paste, okay? So it is local code Kotlin will become that Kotlin also. Okay, so this is coming. And this already has local copy for it, definitely. And later, I plan to add, so local copy is not local, it is cloud with copy locally. When we use Firebase API with Firestore, that API creates local copy itself. So we will not have to deal with creating local copy manually. So most likely I would probably would even remove room code. So it is a different approach. When we use Firestore API, it just duplicates code under the local copies under the hood locally, so we'll not need to deal with room database. Okay. Or if it's not there, we can have other data on cloud. This will be local copy. It will not be shared between different devices if it is local copy. Obviously, local copy is not shared between different devices. By definition, it's local. Okay? So different devices belonging to the same user, I mean. So this is end for today, but not end in general with this example. So let's close it. I will stop this one and I will close it. So next topic is discussion of getting data from internet. And I already started discussing of the issue that when data is not local, even if it is local, like the local database, it's still writing files. It takes delay. So this is why it is done as in coroutine context, means it is done as separate task, running concurrently with updating GUI task. So when now it's probably a good idea to reclone example, although you have older code, just delete it and reclone it, or reclone it separate folder, because it was so many changes. It's most likely its update will do merge conflict. Okay, so for this reason, okay, it is we will reclone pet data. Where this information is coming from? It's coming from in links how to use HILT, and this link, Connect to Internet. Connect to Internet is explained in the course that I'm referring to. Right? So this course. Unit 5, Connect to Internet. The example has one page. For simplicity, I have 2 pages, a list and details. So they have two activities: get data from internet, load and display images from internet. So our examples do have 2 separate tasks. One is to get description of the data as JSON file. That is referring to images. And use library named COIL. We already had it in the same code, but that COIL library was used to retrieve data from assets. It is a special folder in Android app. This, using the same library, and my exam new rewriting it, to get data directly from images directly from web. So it's technically it is 2 tasks. First, you get description of the data, description itself that has names of the files in it. And after this, you grab those files, or location of the files. So you grab those files with different library. Okay? So it is technically 2 tasks. And they do have 2 labs in it. One lab is just getting data as text. Not useful. Because if you get the text, you need to process this text. So next lab is has piece that is processing that text into tree of objects. So that is more useful. Okay? And last one, let's display images. Okay? And so I'm going to the end of it. Okay? So they discuss data layer, how to do data processing of that. Okay. They talk about manual dependency injection. You're already familiar because I discussed it. It is just creating container yourself and linking stuff together inside of the container. Their approach here is somewhat different from approach in the database example. And my approach in example, it's like data stack, whatever. Stack example, stack demo example. Okay? They do some shortcut. It's curious to see. So this is why we will look at their code. It's curious to see. But they don't use it in any other example. So it is just a demo that it could be done this way, essentially. What they do? They store factory of a view model in companion object of view model class. It's only program where I saw it's doing it. To store a factory of view model in companion object of view model class. Other examples from Google just do it container for it. If you use HILT, it's totally different. It's a nicer way of doing it anyway. It's creating factory itself, so we don't have to deal with that. Okay, so this is where information is coming from. We will look at their code, but before we look at their code, let's look at simpler code that I made. Hopefully it will give better, more comfortable, say, transition line or learning curve. So I will keep this open, but since it's a link to download their code, I stopped rewriting their code for that one. But now let's clone example for pet data again, because this is lots of change. It is, I added, updated libraries, I updated, I created new branches, so many changes. But original code is still original, like what I explained in class. That is not changed. But I added other things, so merging can be issue. Okay, so I click it, copy, and now let's clone it. So clone repository, and I need to make sure it goes into folder of the class. I already deleted data, pet data, so I don't need in this folder. So when I paste it, I need to make it like that. Command C, Command V, and clone it. So it's a fresh clone. Main branch has exactly the same code. I just changed version number for some library. So there's no point of re-explaining it much. Okay, I will just quickly remind what is there. First, let's say switch to just regular phone, medium phone. Do not deal with resizable. There's only one screen layout. Okay. Now I'm running main, and it is the same code as before. So quick reminder what it does. In the main branch, in the local, I created just hard-coded list of objects. Okay. In the repository, I created fake data repository that picking data from the list. You see, get all pets just gives the list itself. Get pet by ID is finding in the list item when ID is matching by that. If it's not found, it will return null. This is why returned value is nullable. So this is the logic behind it, okay? Behind of the data for it. And it is list and details. If you click on it, you go to details. It means it has navigation in it. So in UI, I have app root screen with navigation. I have two addresses, pet list and pet details /ID. Okay. Okay. This is this part, and pet list, it is this part. Our pet data repository does not have any suspend of flows in it. It means there is no, it doesn't have a capability to deal with delay of the data, and it's not delayed because it just ran in memory. Couldn't go faster. So this is overview of what it is doing. Next, I have several tasks to do. And I separated this in different commits. So if we go to commits, we'll see I use it bookmarks and commits to show my changes. So first, I wanted to add hilt to existing code without dealing with web data first. Okay. And next, I want to still use this data, but add loading logic. It means loading screen and arrow screen. So we will have some loading simulations that it shows loading screen, although with fake delay, obviously. And we will see that, and after this, it shows it. So this step will show how to deal with loading delay. So it is incremental. And eventually, when GUI is already dealing with delay, I'm switching data access layer with data coming directly from web. So it is incremental complexity and incremental explanation of the changes. Otherwise, it is too much at once. Okay? So first, I'm adding HILT. You see this one. So HILT requires KSP or CAPT plugin. CAPT plugin is old news, so technology is switching to KSP. So I'm using KSP now. So added KSP plugin. What did they do? You see, I changed libs version to ML because I need to create alias, and I changed it to Gradle files to include KSP. So let's see. I included KSP version at the top. This is kind of hard to look up. You have to go to repository and see what is the current version, because otherwise it's not clear. What is absolutely required, this has to match, this part has to match Kotlin version. Because if they don't, it will not work. Okay? And this is still the same. At the bottom, I added DevTools, KSP, and this part. This has to be copy-pasted. It cannot be added through GUI options of project structure, whatever. Okay. So this is change of lib version to ML. Next, there is a global and local file for build Gradle. They call it the same, but they live in different folders. This is why they can be called the same, because they are in different folders. Okay. So this one, it is global, and you see, I added, this wasn't here, now I added alias to lib plugins DevTools KSP. So this is the name how I call it, but it was dash. Dash is replaced with dot when you refer to it. Lib plugins is appended when you refer to plugin. So this is how I added KSP globally. And next, in the local build Gradle, I added it here. And as you see, I didn't do any other changes. So this is how to add KSP, and after this I clicked elephant button to synchronize. So that was this commit, added KSP plugin. So next, added HILT dependencies. In this, I edited lib versions and these two files, build Gradle. So that was how to add KSP, because it is required by HILT. Now I'm adding HILT dependencies. So in lib versions TomML, I removed navigation compose, because HILT comes with own navigation library. Because it needs to synchronize to creating and destroying HILT view models when you navigate, remember? So it has own navigation library. So I removed navigation compose, and I added HILT navigation compose. So I referring to version of HILT, HILT for the view model library, and HILT for the navigation. So it will be 3 new libraries and 1 library removed from navigation compose. So here it is. Besides this, I need to add 1 more library, HILT Android. This is cannot be added through GUI option. This has to be copy-pasted. GUI option currently cannot find it. This one, HILT Android library. Gradle Dagger HILT Android. Others could be found, but it's easy to copy-paste. Could be found by dialog, project structure dialog. Okay? So I added this stuff, and a library referring to, you see, navigation compose, this is gone. It is replaced by stuff for the health. Okay. And at the bottom, I added health Android plugin because it's required by health. See? This is what I did inside of Lift versions TomML in order to add health. Next, I need to edit two build Gradle files. One is global, one is local. For the global, by analogy, you see it was a health plugin wasn't there, now it is there. For the global file, for the local build Gradle, I have the same health plugin at the top, and I also have dependencies inserted in libraries, you see? This navigation compose dependency is gone because now I have it inside of here. You see, inside of health. Health navigation compose. So I'm referring to these health libraries inserted now in local build Gradle file. Okay. So this is how I added health dependencies. Adding health dependency does not make it work. I need to add other things, really health-related things. All right? So it is new commit, used health. And there are changes. First, I need to add application class. It's absolutely new. Didn't exist because it's required to be used by health. You see, health Android app add should be on top. Remember, with manual dependency injection using container, we still have application class in it. But we had to add code inside of it, right? To onCreate, we create container, and we have initialization in the container. Now it's empty, and we have a health Android app. In both cases, manual dependency injection and health dependency injection, we have to edit Android manifest file to mention application class on top. You see, it wasn't there, now it is inserted. It is with manual dependency injection and with health dependency injection. This program before didn't have any dependency injection. Now I'm adding it. So I need to add pet data application into manifest. Otherwise, when program starts, it will just crash. Okay? This is about application class. Next. Since it is using health view model, I need to edit some GUI files that you refer it to view model function, because now view model function is replaced with health view model. All right? So pet details screen now is referring to health view model. Previously, it was referring to view model. See, view model function. Now it is using health view model function. And now you see, it was pet. This view model was created by calling view model function previously. And now pet details view model is created by calling health view model function. I didn't have factory before because I didn't have dependency injection. It was too simple for dependency injection. I just hard-coded this stuff inside of view model dependency itself. Okay? So this is replacement. Another GUI file, pet list screen, the same. I had view model function imported. Now, instead of it, I import health view model. In the code, instead of calling view model function, I'm calling health view model. So this is just manual replacement. It's not enough, yeah. Now I need to edit view model class itself because health view model has to be health view model, not just view model. So pet a list view model, for example, this one, pet list view model. I'm importing health view model because I'm using annotation health view model on top. And I'm not using fake data repository directly. Because previously I was calling, instead of doing dependency injection, you see, I just had a code repository and fake data repository constructor. I cannot do it when data is coming from web. So for this reason, I'm replacing with dependency injection. Because I cannot just call constructor if data is coming from web. Okay? So this is gone. And instead of it, I have injection of a repository as parameter. Okay? And just because I have injection repository as a parameter, I had to write inject at constructor. So this is new. So instead of creating repository, fake data repository directly by calling constructor, I'm anticipating that I cannot do it with data from web. Although it's still fake, but I cannot do it in general. I replaced this part with injection of pet data repository. It's not fake data repository. It's pet, it's general. Okay? Here. And what I do, when I initialize it, a repository get pet by ID. ID is coming from navigation system as before. By analogy, this is for details. By analogy, I do similar to list view model. A list view model. The same. At the top, fake data repository is not mentioned explicitly, so I can remove it from imports. I imported health view model because it is here on top. And I imported inject because it is here, inject. A repository is injected and it's stored as private instance variable. See, a repository get all pets. Technically, I didn't have to store it as private instance variable because it's not call it again. I could just call it from the parameter. But later I will have to store it in both cases because I will need reload button. So it will reload it when you click on reload. Okay? So this is not end of it because now I need to deal with repositories because this is referring to interface. But I need to tell the injection system that this interface is referring directly to fake data repository. Because Hilt is not smart enough to figure out that there is only one implementation. When you have more than one, it's obvious you need to tell which one to use. Otherwise, how would it know? But it is only one, and you still need to tell it. So for this reason, I'm creating a repository module. It is new class that is binding. It is abstract class that is binding making connection, logical connection, between fake data repository and interface pet data repository. So bind means create logical connection. Use fake data repository when we refer to pet data repository. Right? But fake data repository needs to be constructed because either in the module or with injection. Although it doesn't need to inject anything, we still need to use keyword inject to tell the system create this object automatically when it's necessary. So fake data repository is also edited because now it needs to be constructed automatically by the system because I'm not calling constructor directly. So I added inject constructor into the file. You see, now previously we didn't have it. Now we have it. Inject constructor in order to create fake data repository object. So this ends conversion from non-dependency injection to dependency injection. So it is incremental. And obviously, at every step, I was checking that it's doing right, because if I do lots of steps at once, yeah, it fails, but who knows why. So the same, when you write your project programs, do incrementally so you can check it incrementally. So I added dependency injection system. Here, it is used healed branch. So I can stop it. I can switch to used healed branch, remote used healed. And when we do so, check out, we need to synchronize project with calling this, because now it's using different libraries. So you see sync is required. Okay, sync is required. Either with clicking sync, you see, otherwise it doesn't know. Because now I have different libraries with injection, so it needs to be synchronized. Each time when we switch branches that use different libraries, we need to synchronize project, otherwise it just won't work. Okay, so sync is done, so let's run. It's still local data, still no delay, but it is using health. So I'm explaining this in steps because it's not, those steps are not immediately obvious, so it is transition how to not use health to using health. Okay. Now, as you see, it's working, but this code does not have any option to deal with delays, data delays, because it's local and I'm just doing this in incremental steps. So next is to add logic that can be reused when data is coming from web. Right. Before the break, I explained how I added health to the project. It still doesn't have any logic inside to deal with delays of data coming from web. Now I need to edit that part and see that it works, and after this, change to data coming from web. So at this version, data is still local, but I'm pretending there are delays. So I'm switching, so instead of using used health, I'm switching to loading logic branch. That is next complexity of it. Okay? So switching to loading logic. A remote loading logic checkout. I will stop this one. And immediately you see that I got suspend in front of functions. So let's see what is different now. I got changes in pet details screen, pet view model, changes in pet list view model, changes in main activity. I don't know what is there. Let's see. I added, no, it is a wrong one. So I need to click this. Sorry, I made a mistake. I need to click this in order to see changes in edit loading logic. Okay. So what did I do? This green means new. I added arrow screen, I added loading screen to display that logic. Okay? Next. I just rearranged it because I have more code in it, so I created separate file for detail screen content. So it is what is shown in content. The same as arrow screen content, loading screen content. So I separated this from pet detail screen. And updated states of it, UI states. Most important change from it is to edit pet data repository, because this now has suspend functions. So I added suspend. So pet data repository. Now, since data is delayed, we need to use suspend functions to call them in correcting context. Suspend means takes a while, essentially. Okay? So this is change. Also, in the fake data repository, since it is implementing pet data repository, I added suspend inside, and it's definitely fake because there is no delay. So it is a just marker, because later I will replace with actual data from web. Okay? So this is just handler to be used in the future. So I added suspend in front of repository functions. And later I will change code, because currently it is just picking array and in item from the array. So this is, I'm going to loading logic branch. This is what I'm doing, loading logic branch, and changing this with keeping in mind, code with keeping in mind, but data will be delayed. So I change it interface name, interface definition, by adding suspend. And just because fake data repository is implementing interface, I had to add suspend in the implementation of those functions. Now I have a states of the screen: loading, success, and error. So I borrowed this logic from Google example, loading from data from web. It also has loading state, success, and error. So for example, where it is, in UI, pet detail state, you see it is totally different. Previously, it was just class that contains one pet. So it was simple, right? A class that contains one pet object. Now, UI state for details of pets it is sealed interface. Sealed means implemented in the same file, either inside of the interface or outside. Okay? So it is sealed interface with three implementations: either object loading, use it as a flag, okay, or success containing data from pet. By the way, I want to warn you about spending time in class, because you are falling behind because you keep missing things. You better pay attention, honestly. Okay? You try to resolve stuff in the class that relates to homework, probably, right? But you keep missing new stuff that you will have to learn later. So it's not productive way to spend time, sorry. I know it is video recorded, so you can watch video later, but it's probably not a great idea what you do right now. Okay? So I'm explaining approach used in the Google example, so I'm implementing this part. So state now for details is not just one pet. It is three states implemented in three implementation of sealed interface. Sealed means implemented in the same file. Okay? It's either loading object or data class that contains pet. Okay, they all inherited from pet state, you see, pet state. And or arrow object. So I have three screens, potentially. Right? Next, for details view model, which is matching. Now I'm getting data from suspend function, so I have to deal with view model scope. Okay? And now it is more complicated. So what is the difference? Previously, I was just getting get pet by ID. Because it's not suspend function, I could call it directly. And now I'm not able to call it directly because it's a suspend function. It has to be called in coroutine context. So instead of calling repository get pet by ID to initialize UI state, I initialize UI state to loading at the top. You see? State, UI state, pet detail state to loading. So initial state now it's loading, which is logical. You go there, you load the data. Right? But eventually I need to load the data. So I should call some functions that will load the data. So in the init, which is part of the default constructor, so when view model is created, it will call init. I call load the data. So load the data, it is private function. And now, since my repository has suspend functions, they should be called in coroutine context. So I create launch task from view model scope. Okay? So this is delay. Otherwise, we will not see loading screen. So it's a fake delay, 2 seconds. So it is fake delay, 2 seconds. Then I'm assigning state. UI state, it is mutable state. Okay. And I'm assigning it here. See? UI state value. And now I'm calling for repository get pet by ID. It is in coroutine context, so I can call it. But potentially it can fail. Yeah, because it's network connection later, right? Network connection can fail. So it will throw exception. Catch, so it will assign error. See, try and catch. In Kotlin can return value. It is whatever is the last in the block, it's returned. So if get pet data by ID is throwing exception, this will catch exception and give error to the state. If it's not throwing exception, it can potentially return null because who knows, maybe ID connection is fine, but ID doesn't exist. So pet is nullable. Okay? So I decided, okay, let's check if it is not equal to null. Now I can create success object, and this is given to UI state. Otherwise, I'm just creating error, assigning error object to UI state. So this is the meaning of load data. It won't throw exception because it's the local data. But I'm creating the logic for the future. Okay? And I also have reload data. In order to reload it, calling load data is not enough. I have to switch state to loading. So I have loading screen. And after this, I call load data. That could end up into states either success or error. Okay. I have similar logic inside of my list function. Okay. So pet details view model is explained now. Let's look at pet list view model. Okay. So previously, I was just calling a repository get all pets and put it into state, because state was simple. It is just list of pets. And now my state is three possibilities: error, success, or loading, right? So by analogy, I'm starting the same. When I create mutable state, by the way, it's not state flow. I will change it to state flow later. When we deal with databases, it will be easier to link. So it's not stateful at this moment. It's just mutable state. Right? So loading, initial state is loading. When we init, call init, which is from the constructor, it starts coroutine context task, view model scope launch, again delay, otherwise we will not see loading screen, it's a fake delay. And then try and catch. If no exception, it will assign success with the data. If exception happens, it will assign error. And load data, reload data, will flip state to loading and call load data again. All right? So this is data side logic in view model. I also need to add GUI logic because now I'm dealing with three screens, essentially. So let's look into GUI logic. For example, pet details. Since we started with details, let's look into details. Pet details screen. Okay. UI state now has either loading, error, or success implementation, right? So this is what I have in pet details screen. When UI state loading, call function loading screen content. That will put layout for loading screen. If it is error, display compose function error screen content. That needs view model because it needs a list of the data. And also, no, error needs view model not for the list of the data. List of the data doesn't exist for error, right? It needs function reload data. Since reload data is a function of view model. So on retry is call it when we click retry button. Error screen has retry button. Okay. And detail screen needs pet from UI state and nothing else. All right? So it has the it has a switch when UI state is loading, when UI state is error, when UI state is success. It's not my idea, it is copy-paste of idea from Google example for loading Mars data. There is Mars images there. Okay? And the same is inside of list, displaying list. Okay? Let's look into pet list. Pet list screen content. No, pet list screen content. It is when it is already list. Okay, so pet list screen. In pet list screen, I have UI state. Again, when UI state is loading, display loading screen content. When UI state is error, display this, and I need function to be called on reload of the data. Okay. When it is success, I need pets, and I need to do something when you click on item on the list, because I need to do navigation. So I need to do this, right? You see, on item click, and this is just padding. Okay? So let's see how it works. So now data is not on web, but GUI is ready to handle data delays. And in order to see actual delay, there is a fake delay screen. You see 2-second delay, which is fake, inside of your model. Now we have it here. Fake delay, here it is. There is a reload button. You saw it's reload there. Reload fake delay. Okay. Go here. Please notice that there is no delay when you go back, because view model wasn't discarded and loading was inside of constructor. So although it can be discarded, but it's not guaranteed. In this case, it wasn't. Because I loaded data inside of constructor. Init function, init block belongs to constructor. So it didn't discard view model at this moment. It could be discarded, but it didn't. Okay? So it didn't call constructor again, so I didn't see for that fake delay. So it used data from view model that was not survived this navigation. It's not guaranteed that it will survive, but it did. Android made the decision not to discard it at this moment. Okay. A reload will definitely call a reload function because I attached this code to reload. Okay. Where did I attach it here? It is in toolbar, obviously, right? It is toolbar. So toolbar, pet top bar, this one, you see on reload button click, view model, reload data. So it is this one. I removed that help icon and replace it with reload for simplicity. Okay, we already know how that help works. So instead of having two, I just let's have reload button. So the same here and the same reload here. Clear? So rather than having everything in once, I separated logic in steps. Okay. And now data is still local, but it's not coming from web. And now we have to deal data with from web. That is interesting step, honestly. So 2 hours. Why it took hours? The reason is that this program, when I was using this in summer, I was using Moshi library to process data that came from web. Surprisingly, when we switched to newer retrofit library that is using Moshi, some incompatibility caused my program not to work. Okay. So I spent like more than an hour to figure it out, and I realized that this happens when retrofit went from 2.9 to 3.0 version. Something was introduced that is still not compatible, became not compatible, at least related to my code. So all information on web for Moshi is related to 2.9 version of retrofit. By the way, retrofit is gets data, Moshi is processing. Okay. So it was incompatibility, but how to resolve it, it's not clear. It's not on web at this moment. So I decided to get rid of Moshi for the time being and stick to the same logic as in Google example. Google example is not using Moshi at this moment. It is using serialization of Kotlin itself. So I changed the code because flipping to retrofit library, it's library getting data from web, from 2.9 to 3.0 broke my code, essentially. And maybe it is a good idea, so my code is 100% compatible with the Google example now, except it is, in terms of libraries, it is using the same libraries. Okay. So in order to use data from web, we need to include several libraries, and we also, if we use Kotlin serialization, and this example is using Kotlin serialization, not Moshi, which is not using it, we need to we need plugin for Kotlin serialization. So speaking about getting data from web, okay, there are multiple ways of doing it, but data can come as XML, it can come as JSON, right? And there are various ways to serve data on web. So Google course in this section is covering getting JSON data from web from RESTful service, using RESTful service. So it is specific data from specific service. It is one of the most common. So there are the most common services, kinds of services on web. SOAP and REST. Both are web services. SOAP is quite old news, but it's still around because it was first and the only one. So it was, SOAP is using XML data. And it was introduced by Microsoft in late 90s. So it's more than 25 years old, SOAP. And it's still around. It's using XML and internal protocols of web. It's using web protocols, and under the web protocols, some internal logic from Microsoft. REST protocol is newer, and it is using more of web protocols than SOAP. And this is why it was, say, adopted so fast. It is using JSON, and JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation. So JavaScript Object Notation is well supported by JavaScript and now supported by any possible language. So most of the time, I would say, REST protocol is using JSON most of the time. A REST protocol is not fixed to JSON. It is any kind of content, essentially. But most of the time, it is used with JSON. So in order to retrieve data from the web, first you need to get it. Second, you need to process it. So it is two-step way. So in order to get data from web, most of the time, people use a library called retrofit. Current version is 2, so retrofit 2 something. But 3 is also from there. So somehow retrofit 3 is also called 2. Library is called 2, just version 3. Okay? So retrofit is getting data from it, and now you need some other library to process it. So commonly, there are 3 ways to process it, besides just doing brute force yourself. So there are 3 ways to process data which is received. One way, which is the oldest way, but still around, is to use library called JSON, not JSON. J stands for JavaScript, right? JavaScript Object Notation. But JSON, G is first letter from Google because they created this library. And SON just to make it sound like JSON, okay? So that library is called JSON. It is still around, and it works with retrofit. Some textbooks use JSON together with retrofit. I used this before, and I have even one example for JSON with retrofit. It is oldest approach, but it's still around, and you will find even examples in textbooks for that. I'm getting rid of it from the course, this course. People who wrote JSON library decided to make something better, and they created Moshi library. So Moshi has more features. It is wider, extremely flexible. And this example in the previous iteration of the course was using Moshi. And there is a third approach. Previous version of the Google course used Moshi library. Previous versions used Moshi library. Now they decided to switch to Kotlin serialization, as they did a couple of years ago. Previously, Kotlin serialization wasn't stable as a plugin, so yeah, it was kind of alpha. Now it is stable, so it works. So it is the third approach to use both Kotlin serialization library and Kotlin serialization plugin of Android Studio to work with retrofit library. So there are 3 approaches, and they are not code compatible. So you will have to change code in order to go from one piece to another piece. So code is not copy-pastable. If your code is separating data access layer really well from your GUI, there is no need change in the GUI, but you need to change data access layer because it's different API, essentially. Okay. So there are 3 approaches, and I'm sticking to the same as in Google course that I'm referring to, using Kotlin serialization. Right? So next, I'm switching branch from loading logic to remote data. Remote data checkout. Next, we use different libraries, so I synchronize it. Since data is remote, first question where it's coming from. Okay, so let's find the place. I created remote package. In the remote package, there is a retrofit module, and retrofit module contains address. So it is my folder on cPanel. You see, blah, blah, blah. It is from cPanel, right? cPanel address. Data. Okay. So I copy this, Command C. I go to browser and do paste. If I go there is a path.json file. So it's not a data server. It is just JSON file on cPanel. Why I can use protocol, the same protocol, right? The protocol is called, I already mentioned, it's called what? REST protocol. It's called REST protocol. A REST protocol is built on top of HTTP protocol, and in some pieces it is exactly the same, and it is the case. Okay? So calling get data from REST protocol is the same as calling get something from HTTP protocol. If you use address of the file, HTTP server will give you content of the file. So essentially you say send request get data from this address, and HTTP server replies, here it is, content of the file. Okay. And so it's not real data server, it's just get stuff from this address, and HTTP server, okay, here's the file, get content out of it. Okay. So if we write a server that is serving real data from the database, and it is providing JSON JavaScript object notation, it behaves the same. So this is not getting data from data server, but it is 100% compatible in terms of get something, right? Okay. So this is why it's working. So what is JSON? JavaScript object notation, right? So it is object. It has to be one object. Object in JavaScript could be either array or something else, right? If it is array, it is starting with square bracket. So if it is array data, JSON will start with square bracket. Otherwise, it will start with curly brace. I do have array here. There is one difference between JavaScript object and JSON object. It is requirements for quotes. In JavaScript, if this can be nice, like cannot confuse compiler, interpreter, you don't have to write quotes. In JavaScript, you can even have a space, but if you have a space here, you have to put it in quotes, or minus or plus. Right? So JavaScript does not require quotes if this is just can be understood as variable name, essentially. Otherwise, quotes are required. In web protocol, like REST protocol, JavaScript object notation, JSON, quotes are always required. This is only difference. You have objects inside of objects inside of the arrays, arrays inside of other objects. This is why it can contain any data. So in this case, I have object that this object, you see, that contain array of these objects. And these objects per pet has ID, which is a number, and other substrings. You can also have booleans there. And since anything can be converted to string, so you can just store anything there, essentially. Yes?
So in this case, the image is stored locally, or?
It's also on the server, but this is just referring to the string that contains image name. So in this case, it's just a string that contains image name. I could use address of the image. It will be HTTP address, URL. But it will be also string. Okay? So where images live? This is referring to image name, but I decided just to create a folder to put images there. So I created constant here in local image folder, and it is the place where I stored images. So I will do the same. Command C. And this program knows where to look for these images. This is why it can find it. Okay, it is just constant here. So, and I go here, Command V, and those images. So I uploaded this to cPanel, images and JSON. So this is where it's getting from. Okay. And since this program is storing this constant, it knows how to figure out URL of the image. It will just join image name and folder name on web. Right. So this is where it is coming from. And obviously, knowing where it's not enough, you need to get it from there and process it. Right? So in order to get it and process it, we need to include libraries for that. And so let's look into this. First, I had to edit a file, call it tom.ml. This lib versions tom.ml. In addition to what we had before, we have a retrofit, Kotlin serialization version, and plugin of serialization into retrofit. So essentially, these three pieces. Some of it is plugin. Okay, so it is not plugin. It is library. Use it as a plugin inside of retrofit. Okay, so what do I have here? At the bottom, I had to add Kotlin serialization plugin. Again, it's not added automatically, it is copy-paste. You cannot add this piece through dialog. It is copy-paste for Kotlin serialization plugin. So first thing that I did, I added Kotlin serialization plugin. I added at the bottom inside of tom.ml, I added into global Gradle file, and I added to local Gradle file. You see, it is always Kotlin serialization, Kotlin serialization. And after this, I synchronize it with the elephant button. So first step was add Kotlin serialization plugin. Second step, I need to add two libraries for retrofit and link library between retrofit and serialization. Retrofit is getting data, serialization will process the data. Okay? So next, going back to here, and these are just version of it, this. So I need to add libraries themselves. So you see, Kotlin serialization, JSON, this, a retrofit itself, and serialization converter for retrofit. See, serialization converter for the retrofit. So there are three libraries. Kotlin serialization JSON library, a retrofit library, and a link between serialization and retrofit.
So this one we need to do same like copy and paste. Like
Copy paste. This does not come up with search with that. It's only copy paste. Sorry, not my choice. Okay. The same as in older version, like GUI code. That about Mars pictures. This is about pet pictures. That is about Mars pictures. The same copy paste never came up in that searches. So it's only copy paste. So I added these libraries. They don't go into global. They go into local Gradle file. So if we look carefully, we will find them. Here it is. A retrofit library itself, serialization JSON library, and link between serialization and retrofit library. So three libraries go here. So this is how to add retrofit and serialization together. If you use JSON, different libraries. If you use Moshe, different libraries. So now it is diverting into three pieces, and I'm not covering that too. Code is not compatible. You have to rewrite pieces of the code at data access layer, because this is where you access it. And GUI, hopefully, if it's done right, it will be the same. Okay? So this is I added as a libraries. Next, since code of retrieving data different, objects that will be created by retrieving the data because it is converting JSON into Kotlin objects. Those are different for different libraries. So in order to make easy switch, it's better to have a separate object for different cases. Right? So I remember that we had a room access library object, right? I call it local problem. It is specifically to access data from room. And I had actual user problem, which is not room specific. As the same, I have an object to get data from web. And after this, I have a pet object, which is not web specific. Okay? So in the remote, I created object called a remote pet. Okay? If you use serializable library, it has the word serializable on top of it. If it's a JSON or Moshi, it is different. Okay? I was lucky, not I was lucky, I was just lazy to make it different. Names of the variables are matching names here. If they don't, you have to provide extra information how to match it. Okay? Well, it's not difficult, it's just extra. Also, if you have an extra data field here, and you use default ways of doing it, it will crash. It will say, this is not matched to anything. So it requires extra settings in the code to ignore what is not there. Now I'm lucky, everything is here, is covered here. Okay? So it is copy-paste from Google example. They also have everything here is covered here. If you deal with data coming from a server which is not yours, right, you may end up with something is not covered here. For example, if it is weather, it contains humidity, but you don't care about it. You don't want to display it in your program. And if you don't put it here, and you don't use settings, ignore, not covered here, it will crash. Okay? So you need to do extra code to ignore it. I will add this code to later example. Like I will add it to math example to show this explicitly. Okay? So you created this, and now you need to imitate entire piece. Okay? If you have objects inside of an object inside of the object, you will have to create a lot of them in order to match the locations that contain the data that you need. Okay? Of course, you skip things that you don't need with extra configuration, which is like one line extra. Okay? But idea is to imitate entire piece that you receive. So I already imitated this part. Now I need to imitate this part, entire piece. So what did I do? I created a remote data object that contains, you see, a list of pet objects, see list of pet objects, and this is a name, is matching pets. Right? So first, and it is also serializable, because we use serializable. So in order to retrieve data from web, we need to do setup conversion. In order to set up conversion, we need to declare objects that match it. Okay? If they don't match it, we can provide extra, like serializable name or something like this. There is extra annotation. It is in a Google example. I decided to match it at this moment. Okay? So first we created this. Second step is to create interface that tells the system what you want. Remember our logic about room. We didn't create a code to convert strings that coming from the database into objects of Kotlin, right? We created interface, we call it DAO, that tells the system what you want, and they deal with creating, and libraries deal with creating objects for us. So now, idea is similar, in retrofit is to create interface that tells what you want. This get. Get means we send web get request to specific address. Okay. I remember that name of the file you saw. So this is the base URI plus what I added to base URI. There is a base through URI in retrofit module. You already saw this one, base URI. We copy pasted. And what we have here, it is thing which is extra to the base URI, to the folder of the data essentially on web. Okay? And suspend because it's delay. And this is what you want. It is what you expect from that address. And we know that we expect a remote data, and we already described what it is. So data must be described. Okay. After this, magic happens. It can create object that is able to process received data. Okay. So we definitely need to provide extra information, how to set up retrofit and how to set up serialization together. But a lot of things is internal magic. Okay? So this is interface that we want. Now, in order to create implementation for this, we need to set up retrofit object and serialization together, and that combination will create implementation of the interface. So we don't implement this interface ourselves. We ask retrofit and serialization together to implement it. Where did they set up? In retrofit module. This is why I'm actually want you to use Hilt, because I keep reusing Hilt, and this is how I made it work. Otherwise, I'll have to maintain two versions, and this way it is, sorry, too much work. Okay? A retrofit module. So, what do I need? In order to set up repository, I need implementation of that interface. All right? So this provides pet data API. Okay? This is what I want. I want this implementation provided. Okay? How does it do it? Calling retrofit object, receive it as a parameter, calling create, and this is the name of the interface. Remember how we did builder of room database, the same idea, right? We call it build of blah, 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 room builder build, right? Room database builder. In this, it is retrofit create, and this is the name of the interface to create implementation, which is done under the hood. But in order to have it, we need to have retrofit object. And retrofit object is provided here. See, provides a retrofit object. How it is done? Converter factory, and this is copy paste, because from Google example, I'm creating converter factory using serialization. Add converter factory, JSON as converter factory, receiving JSON to media type conversion. This function is tricky. No, it's not tricky itself. It's doing something under the hood. We don't really care. But there is something tricky about it. Okay, yeah, I will talk about it. And base URI and build. This is creating retrofit object. So this is how data retrieving and processing happens. After this, I just need to wrap it in repository, because this already gives me Kotlin object. So, and this Kotlin object later is processed by my repository. Right? So what is funny about this toMedia type function? The funny part that this function is coming from image retrieval library. Although we are not using image retrieval library here, it is coming from there. Somehow, an image retrieval library coil has this function inside, and this is why it works. So if you don't use coil library, you have to use another library that contains this function. So this is catch. Okay? So this function is coming from here. You see 2 media pi. Okay, HTTP3 media type companion to media type. Okay. Somehow it is inside of image retrieval coil library, but if you don't use this library, you need to use specific library for that. Okay. Otherwise, it just won't work. So this is set up to create retrofit object. So now this part, pet data API, you see, is injected into repository because repository asks for the data. Okay. So let's see what is there. A remote pet data repository is implementing pet data repository. And pet data API is injected into remote pet data repository. Okay. I remember that data that is received is not the data used in the GUI here, right? So I need to do some conversion. So I created function toPet for remote pet. It is external function, so it is defined outside of the class. And what does it do? It is calling constructor of pet. So ID is copied. This is referring to remote pet. ID is copied, name is copied, pet kind is copied, age, but image, now it is image URL. So I joined image folder and image name. So it's not exactly the same data. I do have object conversion. Okay? Now, this toPet function will be applied to the list because what do I get? I get remote data object. You see, pet data API, get remote data, I got remote data object. But I want to have a list of pets out of it. So I need to convert data inside of my repository. So what do I do? Okay, remote data contain list of pets, cool. So I need to convert list of remote pets into list of pets. So for this, I apply map function. What does it do? Pick one item from the list, create another list by one at a time. Okay? So this is remote pet. This is conversion to pet. So after calling map, I will have a list of remote pets converted to new list. So it will create new list of pets, because each remote pet now is pet. Okay? And so I got list of pets. Okay? How did I get pet by ID? If it were a real data server, every pet will have their own address, like pet/ID. But it's not. Okay? So in order to deal with it, I had to get all pets and find pet with the given ID. So it's a hack because I'm not using real data server, I'm just using JSON file. Okay? On real data server, it will be addressed for everyone. Okay? So obviously for optimization. So it's not, everything is not retrieved at once, each time, right? All right. So what is the relation to previous code? Data access layer is different. The rest is surprisingly the same, except one little change. Remember that repository module was linking a repository interface and implementation. Implementation was fake data repository, now it is remote data repository. Okay. And GUI, surprisingly, is identical. Just because I'm using dependency injection, transition from locally stored data to remote data is only a data access layer, and it's not linked, and it's not, doesn't have any change in GUI at all. Okay, I just replaced it data access layer. And what else is different? Previously, this code contained images because they were local, and also contained hard-coded list of objects. I deleted that folder for hard-coded list of objects, and I deleted folder that used to be, remember, resources that contained folder with images. I also deleted that. And now images coming from web and data is coming from web. So there is a fake data delay. This is why we see delay screen, because otherwise we won't. It's so quick. It is just for demo purpose. If you delete it, you will not see a loading screen. It doesn't show error, but you can simulate error. How to simulate error? You turn on airplane mode on the device. This will show error cannot load the data. Okay? So this is how to see error screen on this code. Turn off, turn on airplane mode, so it will not use that one. What is critical but missing information? This information is really critical, so let's emphasize it in bold letters, in huge letters. Program is not able to access, program is not able to access internet with explicit permission to access it. So in the manifest file, it must be, otherwise it will not work, okay? So this is absolutely critical and important, so let's put it in bold letters. Last thing today, that in order to make access to internet work in Android program, it has to be permitted. By default, it's not permitted to Android code to access internet. So we have to go here and do that, or do something fancier, but this works, okay? By default, it will not work. It has to be in manifest file, this line, access to internet. All right? So what is missing? Local copy is missing, but it works without local copy. So this version of the code is sticking to logic of the code for Mars images from Google. We will look at this at Mars images program at the next lesson, because we have only 10 minutes left. Okay. What is the difference? They have a simpler data. It has their objects in the list has only image name in it, nothing else. In this case, I have pet age, pet name, blah, blah, blah. They only display images, and their JSON file has only file names in it. And ID, I believe, ID and file name, nothing else. Okay. So they have a simpler data, and they have one page, not two. They still have arrow screen, loading screen, and reload button, which is similar. So now we're about to finish in theory. So let's see if it's working. Loading, this is fake delay, and this one. So it's coming, this. And I deleted images here, because it's coming from web. I also changed it a little bit GUI related to address of location of the image. So there are some change in GUI, because a previous version of the code was referring to location in assets. Now it is using URL. So that change is tiny, really tiny. So let's see. No, this is related to reload. I clicked wrong piece. I need to click on this. Made work with Kotlin serialization, this part. This one, for example, details screen. Okay. Previously, I had, so let me show. A file, Android assets, images, blah, blah, blah. And now I have just image URL. So this is only change in the GUI. So there is small change, but it's tiny change, essentially. And it's not related to retrofit at all. It is related to how I display images. Right? So just address of it, change it from assets, images, blah, 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 to image URL. And it is in two places because it is in details screen and in the list screen. All right, questions? No? Now we have 5 minutes left. You see, it is getting more exciting, right? But it's probably justifiable because it is exact midpoint of the course. It has to get to some interesting stuff at least close to the middle, right? Okay, so please do not postpone your study because there are other things that needs to be covered and it's not getting easier, unfortunately. Right? So let's wrap it up. Then